What's going on, people? Welcome back to KGX to the Z TV. Here today with more breaking news out of Chelsea Football Club. This time it's totally unrelated to the actual football that's being played, as we are on an international break following the 1-1, disappointing 1-1 draw at home versus Crystal Palace this past weekend. Still haven't got my match review up yet. Wanted to watch it twice, so that will be coming. Don't worry, folks. Like I said, we've got another week. But the big news today out of Cobham was the supposed falling out between Clearlake and minority share owner Todd Boehly. So the reports are that Clearlake, so we're headed mostly by Boehly, owns 62% of Chelsea Football Club, with Todd Boehly being the largest minority owner. Don't know how much he exactly has, but there are some other investors here and there. But he is the largest minority owner, as I said, and was sort of the face of the club when we transitioned from the Roman era to this new kind of consortium marketing kind of group, right? With Clearlake, Blueco, and all those folks. So with the rumors of the relationship souring between potentially Boehly and Boehly, we don't know what's caused this. It could be, and again, this is just purely speculation, it could be disagreements about the different approaches in terms of the recruitment style, managerial picks, all of that stuff, right? We know is very... The more minority owners you have and the more voices you have, the more opinions you're going to get. And while some of those opinions might not be wrong, it's just a lot of folks that potentially aren't on the same page, which can cause issues at the club, right? So we not only heard of the rift there with the potential, and Sky Sports and Bloomberg, who really broke the article, kind of saying that Clearlake, the private investment firm, would be open to buying out Todd Boehly, but would not be open to selling any of their shares. So from the article that I've read and the information that I've seen with the reliable sources, it looks like Todd Boehly has no, I won't say plans, because you don't know what's in that man's mind, but has no sort of foot or sort of ground to stand upon when it comes to potentially buying out Clearlake and becoming the majority owner. So if anything, it would be Todd Boehly selling all of his shares in Chelsea Football Club, and then Clearlake becoming even larger of the majority stakeholder. So that is the big news that's coming out. Also, there was some news about our CEO, Jurassic, who had stepped down. Rumors and speculation said that it was a decision that was coming out of frustrations from not only the commercial side of the aspect. So right, we're 3 weeks into the season, or 3 matches into the season, we still don't have a shirt sponsor, which is embarrassing for a club of our size and stature, as well as just roadblocks and just hurdles into the stadium issue, right? We know the land around the stadium and around the property it's very difficult to get stuff done. But as part of the sale from the Roman era, there was supposed to be a plan put forth in place to get a bigger stadium, right? Stamford Bridge, we know that it's one of the smaller stadiums when it comes to capacity for the larger clubs in England and across Europe, if we're being fair. But yeah, so just a lot of rumblings, backroom staff type rumblings. Although you could say the change in ownership is potential minority sale is much more than just backroom chatter and things like that. Same with the CEO, right? Jurassic was rumored to not even be a football fan, not even have interest in the club from a sporting perspective and sporting avenue, which is always a little bit sketchy, right? How did he even get to that position if he had no rooting interest for Chelsea as a football club. Ideally, if you're going to be in a position, a very high executive position in the world of sports, it'd be nice if you actually liked the sport, if you actually cared about the club and you cared about the players and things like that. And Jurassic might have cared about the club and cared about the players, but he made it very clear from the reports I read that he just was not a football fan, not a sports fan. Wish you well. I think we've already hired a replacement. The name escapes me, but it looked like somebody that was internal. Looked like they got a nice little promotion. But to really go back and kind of harken on the whole Boehly, Clearlake versus Boehly kind of ordeal, you really have to just go back to where everything started. And I've got a handy little timeline on the right. You guys can't see it, but you have to, because it's just so much has happened in the last 2 years with this football club. Actually, almost going on 3 years now. But got to go back to the May of 2022 when Clearlake Capital and Todd Boehly complete. It's around 4.25 million or billion the takeover from Roman Abramovich. Obviously, Roman was forced to sell the club due to reasons not really related to sporting or to sports. So Clearlake and Todd Boehly came in, with Todd Boehly sort of being the face of the acquisition, even though he was just a minority owner. So, they kind of let him being the face of the Dodgers, having his name out there, him being a little bit more accessible, a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more fan friendly. He sort of took that mantle on, and then with that, he became the interim sporting director, as we didn't have one for that first transfer window. We spent around $280 million that window. But if you'll remember, that window was very different from any of the subsequent windows that we've had, right? That was Koulibaly, that was Cucurella, that was Raheem Sterling, that was Alba a little bit later on. That was a very name-driven approach with big names, big wages, big dollar amounts, big reputations coming in. And unfortunately, you look at those, and out of all of those, only Cucurella, who has recently sort of just kind of regained some of his form that he had from Brighton, showed that not only showed that he had the quality to really contribute to the team, but is also still here. So with Sterling, especially with Sterling going out on loan. So very, very different approach, right? So that could potentially feed into, if you're looking back at the reasons why Boehly, Clearlake, and Boehly are kind of clashing heads. That could be a reason right there. Again, this is all speculation. We don't know. But we had that. And then shortly after that, about 6 or 7 matches, maybe even 8 into the season, we sacked Thomas Tuchel and replaced him with Graham Potter from Brighton, which cost an arm and a leg, I think about $20 million to buy him out of his contract. And then probably some severance pay due to Tommy Tukes, who had still gotten us in the top 4, and then somehow that the year before had us in the title race earlier in the season, and then injuries, and then Lukaku sort of kind of sidetracked that whole season, and things fell apart, but we still finished top 4, had a decent showing. I think we made it to the semifinals of the Champions League and lost to either semifinals or quarterfinals and lost to Real Madrid in extra time. That was a heartbreaking one. With a late Benzema goal, maybe a header. But we go out and we spend another like 300 some million in that transfer window, breaking the record. We signed Enzo that window for about 106 million. We signed Mudryk for about 70 million. And then fast forward, things weren't going well. The locker room was bloated. A lot of young kids in there, a lot of underperforming experienced vets. And we ended up sacking Potter, who won just 12 of his first 31 games in charge, with Lampard coming back in, who I think just been let go by Everton at the time, to be the interim manager, right? So we kind of whimper out that season. Champions League gets smoked, I think, by Bayern. And the next summer, May 2023, we go out and we're contacting managers, and we end up with Mauricio Pochettino. Ex-Spurs, ex-Southampton, ex-PSG, experience in the league, took Spurs to heights that they haven't been to in a very long time, got them to a Champions League final, renowned for working with developing young players and things like that. So he ticked a lot of boxes, but ultimately we know how that worked out. We we ended up buying Caicedo, spent another like 400 million that summer. Caicedo, and then just all the kids. We ended up getting Caicedo, ended up getting Cole Palmer, DeSassi, just so much turnover and upheaval into our squad. And then we get off to a very disappointing start. We're poor in, this is with no Europe, considering that we had finished, I think, 12th or 10th the year before. So one game a week. We make it to February, we make it to the Carabao Cup final, end up losing in extra time to an injury-riddled and very youthful Liverpool team in Klopp's final season. And then late season push, we win, I think, 5 of the last 5. Pretty good performances in there along the way with Spurs, and very big win versus United in extra time. And we end up scraping 6th, but get knocked out of the Europa League because United win the FA Cup against all odds against City, and then we drop down to the Conference League. Pochettino departs by mutual ways, right? Disagreements over how he sees the squad, Conor Gallagher, and things like that. And then we end up in June of 2024 hiring Maresca, and here we are 3 months later, and instead of talking about the football, which has been promising, and we've seen some very early signs, some very interesting recruitment, we're talking about ownership again, and the potential for our conglomerate, our Clearlake capital, to go out and purchase maybe all of Boehly's shares. So we'll see what happens. I mean, ideally, I would rather, if you gun to my head, I'd rather have Boehly in charge, and I'd rather have him be our majority owner. He seems to care a little bit more, which I know is a little disingenuous because I'm not there and I don't know obviously how Boehly and how Clearlake Capital view Chelsea and things like that. They've definitely pumped a lot of money into the club, both on our side as well as the women's side. But it just seems like Todd Boehly that first window sort of gave him a very bad name when he made himself interim sporting director and went out and just made some high-level purchases, wanted to get Ronaldo. Tuchel finally or eventually talked him out of it. So if you're asking me about which owner I see and which approach, the young approach of buying world wonder kids, as opposed to the traditional Chelsea approach of buying ready-made stars on big wages and things like that. Ideally, I'd still probably would rather have the traditional and the old school and the Boehly approach. But we're at a point now where we've got so many young players that we need time to get them to develop, and we need to hope that they actually develop into the world-class talent at the price points we paid for them. So it'll be interesting to see. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to just have a quiet international break. Just some of our guys go out there. Nani, Vega's out there. I think Fofana got called back. Gusto got called back. Just been nice to see some of our players go out there and just perform. Come back healthy for our away trip to the Vitality, to Bournemouth. But as things stand with this football club, it's never a dull moment. So we will see. We'll see how this next week plays out. I'm sure there will be more news clippings, more information coming out. But one thing's for sure, I'll always have you locked and loaded here. So be sure to check back with us. Make sure you hit that like. Make sure you hit that subscribe. And we'll see you at the next video.